All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
Thank you, everybody. Wow, I am overwhelmed by your recorded applause. It so warms my heart. Albert is back from his...
Albert, thank you.
Did you go away? I can't remember. It was just your normal days off.
This is my normal days off.
Normal days off. All right, we missed you here. And Kim,
how are you?
Is here. She's chitting all the way to the holidays.
Chit.
Yeah, in fact, her chit mug, which is a big hit with the kids. You can see chit. It's on the backside of the Mark Thompson, the new Mark Thompson Show mugs. They are the white. And, yeah, Kim's chit mug is one of the top sellers. It's just a fun thing. By the way, the other thing we have is the happy non-denominational holiday shirts that are flying off the shelves. Grab yourself one for this holiday season. We don't ask questions as to what you celebrate, how you're celebrating. We don't ask questions. Whatever you want to do, however you want to do it, it's your business. But I will tell you that there is a real sale on these shirts at getmarkmerch.com. I know. $16? Are you kidding me? This is unbelievable.
What?
Yeah, unreal. I also am excited about the female fits. The old merch site didn't have the male and female. Now we have both fits. What a show we have. You have chosen wisely. Those of you who have chosen to be here. If you were forced to be here, sorry, we'll try to pay off anyway. But those who have chosen to be here, the choice you've made is a wise one. We have news out of the Trump administration to be. He's making a lot of moves, Kim. A lot of moves, not even Prez yet. But he wants some very controversial picks in some very high-profile positions. He's also doubled back and, picked up some of the ass-kissers of the past and
nice.
Wants to put them into the administration because he wants people who love him.
The ass-kissing shall not be forgotten.
I don't blame him. People are kind of dumping on Trump, but I totally...
There's never been anything like this.
I totally get it. You want to surround yourselves with ass-kissers. Just the opposite of this show.
I've never seen anything like it.
This show, I am given so much grief about everything. And I think to myself, maybe Trump has the right idea. Just hire a bunch of people who kiss your ass. You know what I mean? But anyway, he's made another appointment. We'll get to that in a second. And there are major doings north of the border as well. We have the resignation letter that will leave you with a warm, wonderful feeling. It's one from an administrator north of the border, Liz Cheney, in the news as well. Luigi is in the news again. Well, don't get too excited. All you Luigi fans, he is now being charged with first-degree murder in New York. And you may say to yourself, and we've kind of covered this, but if you're new, how was it not already first-degree murder? I mean, he lay in wait for the guy. He shoots him in cold blood on a Manhattan street. Well, because of the way the laws are in New York and the way the charging works in a situation like this, it would already likely be second-degree murder. You'd need some kind of upgrade to the charges to have it end up being first-degree murder. But that upgrade, they actually did get. Isn't that right, Kim? I think they're going to charge him now with...
First degree.
First degree with terrorism. They're going to kind of add that to it, and that ups it to first-degree murder. So with that upgraded charge, prosecutors are saying, hey, we're going to get this guy on first-degree murder. As I mentioned yesterday, and as we told you before, he is being represented by a lawyer who has been a guest on this show, and well represented. She's really a talented attorney. We'll have to see. It seems as though there's very little wiggle room for Luigi. But Luigi still has initiated a conversation around health care. Sad that it had to come at the hands of a murder. But the unworkable fact, the unworkable details of the U.S. healthcare system are laid bare. And this conversation will continue. So just because I'm mentioning Luigi, I don't know if this is sort of apparently in his press conference yesterday. I don't know if it's a press conference. He has a thing at Mar-a-Lago. There are a bunch of reporters there that sort of, have been preloaded. They are themselves, if you will, kind of shills in the Donald Trump machine. There'll be more and more of this.
Are you saying the ass kissing continues?
Yeah, I'm saying that they're kind of the media ass kissers, right?
Yeah.
So, not that every question has to be a gotcha question. Please don't get me wrong, but I do think that there is a degree of, let's say, an adversarial relationship that always exists between the press and the people in power. In this case, the power to be Donald Trump. But in his news conference on Luigi, he condemned the fans of Luigi. And, he's, as I said, been celebrated as a hero by some. But during the news conference, Trump said, I think it's really terrible that some people seem to admire him, like him. And I was happy to see that it wasn't specific to this gentleman that was killed. It's just an overall sickness as opposed to a specific sickness. This is so Trump, the way this is. That was a terrific thing. I'm sorry, that was a terrible thing. It was cold-blooded, just a cold-blooded, horrible killing. And how people can like this guy that's a sickness, actually. So Trump calling out those who are supporters of Luigi and those who feel Luigi was involved in some kind of sort of righteous battle against the healthcare machine. So, first-degree murder for Luigi will be the charge, and Trump says, stop celebrating this guy. And that's where we are on that. If anyone has any special news, I will do it. Otherwise, I will move into other areas. I do want to mention that the links for our meetup went out, and you should have them in your email. In fact, if you don't have it in your email, then please let me know. Respond at mtsmeetup@gmail.com if you didn't get a link. Everybody should have links at this point, so we should be ready to rock. It is Saturday, of course, and I think we're sold out. You might find one more seat, so if there's just somebody who really goes, oh my God, I meant to do it and didn't, jump on it, but you'll have to jump on PayPal link and, do the number and then hit me at mtsmeetup@gmail.com. That's the way we work it. It should be fun. It'll be Saturday. It's our holiday meetup. B.O. says, Mark, I signed up for the holiday meetup, but forgot to send you $5 extra to cover inflation, the high cost of eggs, and $12.50 for the anticipated 25% tariff. Yeah, everything's going to get more expensive on this show, too. But I'm excited, B.O. I sent you your link. We're excited to have you join us. Always a regular in the meetups. B.O. Love him. Anything else I need to deal with before I move on? All right. Then move on I shall.
The Mark Thompson Show.
There is a Congress funding bill that has made it through now. It's interesting because there's a lot in this bill. They sometimes talk about these bills as Christmas tree bills because there's so much sort of laid onto them in these bills that are associated with keeping the government open that they resemble Christmas trees because like Christmas ornaments all over the place. Mm-hmm. So this funding bill has $100 billion for disasters. It restricts U.S. investments in China, renews expiring health program, okays increased sales of ethanol fuel, and extends the farm bill through September. They released the text of the bill last night. This bill will fund the federal government into March. It's hitched again to more than $100 billion in disaster aid and a slew of other last-ditch policy bills that, are essentially shoehorned in. The bill to renew expiring health care programs, to restrict U.S. investments in China, as mentioned. And Speaker Mike Johnson got angry when it was called the Christmas tree bill. He said, it's not a Christmas tree bill. It's not a Christmas tree. It's a small stopgap funding patch, he said. We've had to add a few things that were out of our control. These were not man-made disasters. These are things that the federal government has an appropriate role to do. So I wish it weren't necessary. I wish we hadn't had record hurricanes in the fall. So disaster aid is going to largely flow to those communities recovering from Hurricanes Helene and Milton and wildfire recovery, severe flooding. Plus, there's federal aid to rebuild the Francis Scott Key Bridge that collapsed in Baltimore, you'll remember, from that accident, and $10 billion in economic assistance for farmers. Anyway, so that bill passes, government stays open, and there is that. Bottom of the hour, we'll talk to John Rothmann. We'll talk to him about what's happening with RFK Jr. and the rise of RFK Jr. at Health and Human Services. He's now sort of on a charm offensive, and he's talking to officials on Capitol Hill. The idea is, I say officials, it's senators essentially who'll be involved in his confirmation. And that's an effort to kind of chill people out, right? He's got a lot of radioactivity associated with him. The idea that he's, this staunch anti-vaxxer. I mean, you could call him one of the leaders of the anti-vax movement. And so, now the polio vaccine is on the table, and Trump's having to say, I support it, but I don't think that there should be mandates. So typically the way it works is you can't send your kid to school unless your kid has followed a vaccine schedule that has been established by the state. Sure. Isn't that right, Kim?
That's right. Yeah, if you don't have and it has to be signed by your doctor. All the forms have to be completed by a medical doctor. So, you can't really fudge it. Not that I would. I'm just saying for people that, think they can just slide into the public education system. And for a time, there was a designation. There is still a designation about it being against your religion, a religious exemption. But they made it a little more difficult. You kind of had to show some proof on that. Because it used to be you could check that box and you didn't have to worry about it. Yeah,
you have to show now pictures of you in church or synagogue to get the religious exemption. As you know, I feel religious exemptions are BS and they should not be permitted. They should not be permitted for anything. But that's my opinion, and I'm sure it's not very popular. I'll get some blowback. I'm not saying, you can religify yourself all you want. I'm all for it. Look, happy non-denominational holidays. Whatever you believe, I'm on board with it. I truly am. But I don't think when you want to participate in the rest of society, when you want to engage in the rest of society and avail yourself of those things in society that will allow you to educate your children, to get from here to there, whatever it might be, you've got to play by society's rules. Now, if you don't like society's rules, then change the society you're living in. Go live somewhere else.
Amen. Hallelujah. Find a mountain in the woods, a cabin in the forest.
I have a religious exemption. We in this country, we drop everything if you just mention God and religion. Look at the way we allow churches and synagogues to be completely tax exempt. It's utterly absurd. The Scientologists figured it out. They figured, oh my God, if we are a church, we have total tax exemption. And they pressured the IRS, and they actually got that tax exemption. They essentially intimidated the IRS into that. You should read the book Going Clear. It's detailed quite beautifully. But again, I don't blame them. I mean, there's this ridiculous thing where we don't tax these religious institutions. So if you're a church or synagogue, you're getting away scot-free. So anyway, I just think that the idea somehow that you get a religious exemption on vaccinations and vaccinating your kid when you put other kids at risk, that's a problem. Look, yeah, go ahead.
Can we talk about the polio vaccine for just a second? I'm sorry to interrupt you. I feel like there's two chief concerns I have, and one of them is that Trump came out and said, hey, if the polio vaccine is considered to be unsafe, then we'll consider pulling it off the market. This is following reports that the lawyer for RFK Jr. was looking at trying to get the FDA clearance of the polio vaccine rescinded. Now, And the concern for me about what Trump said is if it's considered unsafe. Well, what does that mean to Trump? Because what we know is they don't believe in real science. So what? They find some pseudoscientist to say it's not safe, and then all of a sudden it's not safe. I don't trust them to look at real bona fide science. I don't trust them when it comes to that at all. And the latest is that RFK Jr. is going to be making the rounds with senators, and he's backpedaling on the polio vaccine thing because you have people like McConnell, people in the Senate that had polio or remember what it was like in the years when polio was a concern. And they're saying, no, this is not okay with us. And so now RFK Jr. is saying, oh, we'll take polio off the table. We're not going to really touch the polio vaccine. Do we trust him once he gets in there to really follow up what he says now? Because they'll say anything to slide themselves in, right?
Well, that's the thing, right? It's just like the Supreme Court confirmation processes that we've all seen through the years. I mean, those are the ones that we're probably most familiar with, where they make some guarantee, it's settled law, before you know it, they're overturning Roe. Like it's the first order of business, So I agree that when it comes to these vaccines, he's tried to modify his position. He's tried to moderate his position. He's tried to chill everybody out because it's alarming. But obviously, the vaccine protocols that he's asking for, double-blind studies over long periods of time, those weren't available to those developing the vaccines, the RNA vaccines that were associated with treating COVID. Now, I think that there's a lot about the COVID vaccine protocol that was messed up. I think we were led to believe that the vaccine was going to be far more effective in preventing COVID infection than indeed it could be. To be fair, it was the mutation and the constant change of the virus. And this is the problem with these coronaviruses. It is essentially, by definition, impossible to develop a vaccination for it such that it will completely protect you from being infected. Yet it was sort of pitched that way at the beginning. So I'd say that our recent history with vaccines has been on some level murky from the standpoint of results, details, promises. But some of these vaccines to which you've referred, certainly the polio vaccine among them, but you've got smallpox and measles and rubella. These are serious illnesses. They can kill you. They can handicap you. They can destroy your life. Even if you don't die from them, they can so compromise your life that there is a tremendous value to these vaccines. It's one of the things that's allowed us to flourish as a society. So I really think that slamming the door on vaccines is a real stupid thing to do. But it's obviously right now being fueled, A, by RFK Jr. He may lead the parade, but I'd suggest that the social media environment has really animated the pushback and the anti-vax movement. Again, I would take meetings on certain vaccines and the effects of certain vaccines. I think that's only responsible to do that. But I absolutely don't have the view that, well, you know what, you've got your immune system, and if you just let your immune system do its thing, your immune system was doing its thing for a long time. Talk to those who were handicapped by polio, smallpox, measles, rubella, diphtheria. These are all things that are brutal. And here's from Dillette. I had measles as a toddler. My parents thought I was going to die. Exactly. You don't F with this stuff, man. There's a lot of, in America, feeling fat and happy right now. That's really what we are. We're a spoiled, decadent nation in many ways. And because we don't suffer from a lot of these things anymore, we've forgotten the impact that they've made on society, the negative impact. We've forgotten how far we've come in preventing the scourge of these illnesses. The new administration says they will not financially support schools that have vaccine mandates, says Tammy. That is going to be a serious issue, although I will say something about that in just a second. Karen says RFK Jr. says eating the right food makes vaccinations unnecessary. Yeah,
Because
right.
science, yeah, that's great.
Well, the
No.
only other thing I would say about the mandates is these mandates are. I didn't expect we'd be talking about this, but just to round it out, these mandates come from the state often. So the idea somehow that that the Trump administration is saying that there'll be no mandates in schools. No offense, dude, but read the rule book. You don't control what is mandated in the schools all the time. Now, the federal government can Bigfoot the states. That can happen. Then you have to go to court. But generally, the states control. That's why everybody's mad at Newsom. All the anti-vaxxers are mad at Newsom, right? Mm-hmm. Because he's the one who put out the edict that there would be vaccinations in California. But anyway, that's the situation as RFK Jr. heads to the Hill to, pursue his charm offensive and chill everybody out about his position on vaccines. Jim says, why not put someone in charge of HHS that has a background in science or medicine? Isn't that quaint?
Jim
it's
makes
America.
Too much sense.
Yeah, to be fair, if you surround yourself at Health and Human Services with enough people who are really buff in the sciences and in medicine, then the administrative aspects of that job, if you're assuming the person has some strong administrative chops, it should carry you through. But when you have this and we have this in many right now with these appointments, many different branches of the government, a kind of effort to undo everything. You can quickly undo this government. You can quickly undo it. I mean, it's, you need a measured approach to governance, and I don't know that you're going to get that with this crew. But anyway, that's the word on that. And
The Mark Thompson Show.
We'll talk to John Rothmann about some of the other things that are going on Capitol Hill. The Matt Gaetz report is coming out. It will be released now, and I'll get to all of that. But before I get to Rothmann, Albert, are we ready? Give me a little chunk of Trump.
Open wide.
Ready?
Here comes your chunk of Trump.
It's my favorite food.
With your first bite, here's Mark Thompson.
I have a feeling it's going to be beautiful.
Well, he's your pal in fighting vampires. You'll remember the
Planet Earth.
No. What was his, the line, Albert?
Was it a werewolf?
A werewolf can kill a vampire. Did you know
That's
that?
it. A werewolf can kill a vampire.
Yeah.
Trump has nominated your pal in that vampire fight, Herschel Walker, to be ambassador to the Bahamas. Yep. The former NFL star will be America's ambassador to the Bahamas. Herschel has spent decades serving as an ambassador to our nation's youth, Trump wrote. Our men and women in the military, athletes at home and abroad. Congratulations, Herschel, he wrote. You will make Georgia and our entire nation proud because we know you will always put America first.
A werewolf can kill a vampire. Did you know that?
Well, the thing is, of course, we found out in his race for the Georgia Senate seat, he doesn't really live in Georgia. We also found out that this man, Herschel Walker, who is serving as an ambassador for decades, as Donald Trump has said, to our men and women in the military and athletes at home and abroad, to young people everywhere. He maintains family values and talks about how abortion is a sin and how he is a pro-life Republican where it wants nothing to do with, feels that there should be a national abortion ban. But as it turns out, again, this all came out during his Senate run, he was basically running a super shuttle to the abortion clinic for all the women he was getting abortions for. Many, many abortions.
You
Yeah,
can't make it up. It's crazy.
Bet he can't find Bahamas on a map, says de Hagel, right?
In the Bahamas right now, they're rolling their eyes. Like, really?
I'll bet
Really?
neither one of these guys, Trump or Walker, could find the Bahamas on a map. But do we really need an ambassador to the Bahamas, John's asking. But again, Herschel Walker is loyal to Trump, and that's all Trump cares about. So Herschel Walker, that was a critical Senate race, and that's where we found all that stuff out. But he lost that Senate race, and now he's going to be, the Bahamian king. And, let's face it, this guy was a pick from Trump to, carry on the MAGA dream into the Senate. And as the Senate race began, he seemed as though he had great name recognition. He was a star athlete. You see Albert put up the picture of him as a running back, an amazing running back. Just incredibly gifted. But, of course, a series of bombshells emerged about everything related to Herschel Walker. And his football celebrity quickly was replaced by a lot of these facts.
Don't you think we should maybe give Herschel Walker a break? He had a lot of hits to the head, right?
Yeah,
Because in football, the chances are good that CTE is a likelihood.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I think perhaps, when he opens his mouth and does things, it's maybe because he's not quite right.
Well, look, I'm sure there's an explanation for everything and everyone and everything that people do and everyone that we know. But in this case, I'd say that however he ended up there, he certainly understands how to run for office. He ran for Senate. He understands how to have a family. He has one family, and he's really kind of been swimming away from some of the other families, right? He was an absentee father, basically. So when he talks about conservative policies and his commitment to family, you have to keep in mind that he was, and this is, again, all stuff that came out during his campaign, that he was critical of absentee fathers, but then he was an absentee father himself. So that, you add domestic violence allegations that emerged during his campaign, and you end up with, I think, a really damaged guy. He's clearly not very smart. He said he graduated top of his class. He didn't graduate at all. The guy is, what can I say? He's a serial liar, thought he could BS his way and just sort of name recognition his way into the Senate. And now he'll be in the Bahamas. Great. Have a pina colada and enjoy yourself.
A werewolf can kill a vampire. Did you know that?
I'm just saying, he's
So
a waste.
one of the comments, I have to scroll back and find it, said at least if shipping him off to the Bahamas means they can't make him the head of NASA. When you look at how much damage he can do, he's in a position of not very much.
Very well said. Yes, indeed. Yeah.
The Mark Thompson Show.
All right, smash the like button like a boss. I know. Thank you for being here. I really
iron rod.
appreciate it. Very, very cool as we kind of wind up the year. We've had a lot of growth this year, a lot of fun this year, a lot of serious stuff this year. This has been a troubling year from many standpoints. Politically, it has been a watershed year. And one of the guys who's been loyal to the show, stayed with us through the whole time, and continues to be a beloved figure on the show, put it together for the political historian, John Rothmann. Yes, sir. So, John, I want to ask you about this. First, the breaking news of the morning, which is that Matt Gaetz, as it turns out, we will see the House Ethics Committee report on Matt Gaetz. Can you speak to that? Maybe its impact, if you will, and just how you digest it?
Look, it's interesting because we will now learn what the committee learned. And one of the reasons why Matt Gaetz is not proceeding as the nominee for Attorney General is because of what's in that report. He doesn't have the credibility. So we're now going to read about the scandal. Okay. Donald Trump may still find a place for Matt Gaetz. He likes him. He enjoys his company and he appreciates his support. But like Herschel Walker being sent to the Bahamas, or Kash Patel to head the FBI, or Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to lead the Department of Health and Human Services, these are ludicrous appointments, pure and simple.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the appointment of Walker to the Bahamas is sort of like one of those ambassadorship kind of things. The equivalence would be, some rich donor, you give them ambassadorship to.
Well, you remember who
one thing or
was
another.
the British Governor General of the Bahamas was King Edward VIII after he abdicated.
No.
The Duke of Windsor was sent to the Bahamas, out of the way, out of sight, out of mind.
But the others that you mentioned are truly troubling. I think the FBI is an organization that could be weaponized so easily and has been in the past. But the kind of weaponization that Kash Patel is talking about, I mean, with an enemies list and going after the political adversaries of Donald Trump, this will make the Hoover administration of the FBI look like a Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood kind of administration.
If J. Edgar Hoover were alive, he'd be rolling over in his grave.
Well, John, we talked about this. If he were alive, he wouldn't be in his grave. Okay, so stop it with that. So, yeah, the Patel thing is concerning. So it's not like again, a loyalist, but this is a loyalist you're putting in a critical position, unlike Herschel Walker.
I agree with you. Let me just tell you, I was asked to describe Donald Trump in 3 words. And I said loyalty, reward, and revenge. If you're loyal to Donald Trump, you'll be rewarded. And if you're disloyal, there's revenge. And that's Donald Trump in a nutshell.
In the reading that I've done, though, the David K. Johnston books, and you can even use the first administration of Trump as a guide, you can see that loyalty, to which you've just referred, can be initially rewarded. And then there are bigger and bigger requests on the part of the president.
Mike Pence is your best example.
There you go. Yeah. And so, Trump can fall out of love with you just as easily as he's fallen in love with you on some level. And then you end up where you're asked to do something that, is either illegal, immoral, or unethical. And that's kind of where we are. I mean, what he's done, it seems to me, and I guess I'm asking you whether you agree, is he's populated his administration with those who really won't be bothered by the fact that something's immoral, unethical, or, just not cool.
I agree completely.
Yeah. So tell me, as we face the challenge, he's a month away from taking office, where do you see his priorities coming out in the first year of his administration? I mean, can you see the biases already as to what he wants to do?
Of course, just use as an example Liz Cheney, who he is bitterly attacking. Now, Liz Cheney was the number 3 Republican in the House of Representatives. She was the vice chair of the January 6th committee. Donald Trump will never forgive her for that or for endorsing Kamala Harris. And now he's threatening to go after her. Can you imagine? I mean, really and truly, this is one of the most highly regarded leaders in our country. Liz Cheney won the John F. Kennedy Profiles in Courage Award, and I was proud to endorse that nomination. I have no words. Now, I spoke this morning to the Economic Roundtable, and I suggested to them that the hubris of Donald Trump may be his downfall. Look at Robert Kennedy Jr. just for a minute. Mitch McConnell is now on the fence because Bobby Kennedy Jr. said, I wouldn't do away with the polio vaccine, but he only said that after President Trump said it. But will the Republicans have the intestinal fortitude to stand up and just say no? It doesn't look like it, and that's a real tragedy.
Yeah, certainly if recent history is a guide, they won't. There is a lot of pressure. And that's just RFK Jr. We mentioned Kash Patel. Tulsi Gabbard is another. I mean, she'll run. She'll have under her, won't she, the CIA as director of national intelligence.
There are 18 different intelligence departments that fall under her purview. I have no words to describe to you the horror that I feel. Look, every president wants loyalty. That's not an improper request. You go into a job and you're appointed to the job and you're confirmed, and everyone wants a reward. If you've worked for a candidate for president or any office, you may feel you're entitled to something. And I don't know if you are, but that's the way politics works. What bothers me is the revenge. And Donald Trump has made clear he's going after these people. And more disturbing, Kash Patel, if he is confirmed as director of the FBI, has said he'll go after these people. That's horrific. Do you know there is an enemies list? When Richard Nixon had an enemies list and it became public, people in this country left and right went crazy. There doesn't seem to be any concern today about an enemies list or the kinds of statements that are being made. That's what bothers me more than anything else. So, I mean, that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting, the enemies list, the lack of experience. I mean, Kash Patel hasn't been an FBI agent. He's not really known in that building. I mean, you know, this is sort of typical. I mean, another example is Pete Hegseth. I mean, he's not known at the Pentagon. He's not run anything.
But he was on Fox.
Right, exactly. He was the weekend anchor at Fox, and he's handsome. I mean, I think that there is a part of Trump that just is attracted to people who come across well cosmetically, on television.
Or who have money. Can you imagine the amount of money that is being contributed now to the inaugural activities by people who were once his opponents? Why do you think they're giving? Out of the goodness of their hearts? No, they're giving for influence. This is the most corrupt beginning to a presidency I've ever seen.
So John's just referred to something that really is worth noting, and that is that this inaugural committee that's formed and then the inaugural funds that are collected, they sort of stand apart from everything else in government as a way to money your way into a position of influence. And so, as John has just noted, there are libs, there are Democrats, there are the Jeff Bezoses of the world. There are, I mean, I don't know whether he's a Democrat or Republican, but I know that he's the leader of a major corporation, and he and others are contributing millions of dollars to this inaugural fund. And the idea is, as you suggested, John, it's just to curry favor. I mean, at some point.
Let me point out to you, the Washington Post was prepared to endorse Kamala Harris. Who pulled the endorsement? Jeff Bezos. I mean, I don't know how to define corruption any other way than to look at what Donald Trump is doing right now.
So the other thing I'll just say and add another specific to this is the latest pick at the Pentagon. Again, another person without experience in the building. But he is, as just noted by Brother Rothmann, he is, and Rothmann was saying, either a loyalist or, the other thing that Rothmann just said is, or somebody who's a big donor. And that's what you have in Andrew McKenna, who's a leading contender for Secretary of the Air Force. McKenna is a private pilot. He heads a small Washington advisory and investment firm. He'd be the latest of Trump's picks to take on a top job at the Pentagon without significant experience in the Pentagon. He served in the White House liaison's office at the Agricultural Department during the Bush administration. Then he went into the private sector. So you've got Pete Hegseth and you've got this Andrew McKenna, neither of whom is connected to the organization they would be running. And Kash Patel falls into the same category, as does Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah, but you have to understand, this is a soon-to-be president who has talked about bringing back the former chief of staff, General Milley, recalling him to service so he can be court-martialed. I spoke this morning to a group about the question of revenge. That is what I'm worried about. And I can only tell you, it scares the living bejeebers out of me. Whatever you think of George Milley, he was a solid chief of staff.
Mark Milley, you mean?
Mark Milley. And so it's just astounding to me.
By the way, I don't think much of Mark Milley. Okay.
Well, whether we think a lot of him or not, he retired. And remember, he stood for the Constitution. He opposed Donald Trump. You don't want to know what Trump wants him to be court-martialed for? Because he sent a message to the Chinese after the insurrection of January 6th to say the American government is secure and stable and there's not going to be a problem. Because,
by the way, I'm confusing my Mark Milley. I don't feel bad about, but you said he was his chief of staff. Are you sure about that?
Mark Milley was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff.
The chairman of the Joint Chiefs. Yeah, he's a solid guy. Absolutely.
I'm sorry if I wasn't clear.
No. But the White House chief of staff under
Which
Trump.
one? There were 4 of them.
I know. He went on to be a CBS analyst. I've forgotten his. I thought he was also a Mike. It's not important. I don't know why I even get off on this stuff. His new chief of staff is really talented. I mean, she's talented bad. I mean, Susie Wiles has been, she's been a very effective lobbyist, right, John Rothman? She's going to be,
Yes,
she's competent.
But let me explain to you. She has been Donald Trump's chief of staff through the campaign. She survived. She was stable. And that's what Donald Trump is looking for.
You were talking to this economic forum. Give me a thought about the economy under Trump. He's inheriting a good economy. Even Gary Cohn, who ran the video a couple of days ago, who really ran the economy for Trump under his first administration, says the economy's in pretty good shape.
It is. We are a booming economy. We are the economic engine of the world, which is what I said this morning. The point of the American economy is clear. And frankly, when history is written, Joe Biden's going to get high marks on the economy, no matter what the Republicans say. And now there's a question with the tariffs, because Donald Trump is insisting he's going to impose tariffs. And if you heard from Canada, they're saying you impose tariffs on us, we're going to hit right back at you. And remember that the gas and oil which comes to the Pacific Northwest of this country, the Atlantic states, all come from Canada. And
that's right. What John is saying, sorry to interrupt. I was just going to put a specific on that. When you talk to people in Wisconsin, Minnesota, these northern border states,
New York.
Get their,
And if Donald Trump follows through with his threat, the Canadians are going to retaliate, and it will have a huge effect on the American economy. And that is what the Canadian minister talked about today. So I mean, this is something, Mark, that we're going to have a lot to talk about in the days ahead. And I regret to say a lot of it may not be good. Although, let me be blunt, I'm hoping that Donald Trump's hubris is put aside and that the views that we have now are mistaken, because we don't want to have a president who fails or a president who creates strife. And that's the real issue. Not to mention,
I don't know what a successful Trump presidency would be. I mean, I guess I want him to stay out of trouble, but his agenda is pretty dangerous. I don't know.
I agree with you, but you have to hope. And I know it's a crazy thing for me to say. I'm certainly a harsh critic of Donald Trump's. But if he fails, or if this enemies list grows, or if he goes after Liz Cheney, or if Kash Patel uses the FBI to go after enemies, this country will go through a change that is profoundly disturbing. Yeah. And I do want you to know, Trump has inherited a strong economy from Joe Biden, and Joe Biden deserves great credit for what he has done. But these are real issues and things that I know that on the Mark Thompson program we're going to be discussing in the weeks and months and 4 years ahead.
You know something, we will, and Mike Flynn, somebody pointed out, might have been the person I was thinking of. It wasn't who I was thinking of, but it bears a mention, because Mike Flynn is truly a problematic figure in American history, isn't it?
General Michael Flynn.
Yeah, General Michael Flynn.
Who was the first national security advisor and who had to resign or had to be forced out before he really took office because he lied about Russia.
It was thought was in league with Russia, actually.
Yes, and that's what people don't get. Whenever I hear Donald Trump say Russia, 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 doesn't he remember General Flynn? Doesn't he remember his key aides who suffered because of that? I mean, I have to tell you, Mark, I'm not sympathetic at all to Donald Trump on a whole host of issues, but I'm hoping, it's what I said to my kids. They said, well, what's going to happen? I said, you have to hope that the structure of American democracy survives the assault. And a woman today at the talk that I gave this morning said he wants to be dictator on day one. Well, our Constitution doesn't allow that. And I hope the structure and the strictures of the Constitution prevail.
Well, you, of course, have much greater faith in those strictures and structures than do I, but I also share your hope. I just wanted to mention Mike Flynn in the context of Trump and the fact that Trump has said he's going to bring him back, literally said, we're going to bring you back. He just made these comments over the weekend. And again, if it were up to me, I would remove Flynn from any kind of pension eligibility. He is and he got a pardon, didn't he, John? That's the only reason that Michael Flynn is not serving time, I think.
That's correct. Well, I don't know if he would have been convicted, but the point is, what Flynn did was so unconscionable. And this is a man who was, well, you may recall Barack Obama said to Donald Trump, don't touch him with a 10-foot pole.
That's right. That's right. Obama warned Trump. He said he's in league with Russia and he's a security threat. Trump said this, though, over the weekend. He said, we're proud of you, General, talking about Flynn. I knew it from day one. You're really somebody very special. He's also, just as a note, he's a Christo-fascist, okay? So he wants this to be a Christian nation. He's essentially a white nationalist. So this guy is a really problematic figure. So maybe we dodged a bullet in the fact that he's not running the Pentagon, you know. But I don't know that Pete Hegseth himself isn't a Christo-fascist. So go ahead. It's
the same thing with Matt Gaetz. These Trump loyalists are going to be rewarded. They may not be rewarded with cabinet positions, but they're going to be given critical roles. And everybody who loves America, whether you're a liberal or a conservative, a Democrat or a Republican, ought to be deeply concerned about this. And by the way, not many people are talking about it, Mark. I commend you that you are actually raising these issues, as I try to do in my podcast and everywhere I go.
Kim, you had something for John?
Does it make sense, just from a logical standpoint, that Trump would have a scandal like he did with Michael Flynn and then nominate someone like Tulsi Gabbard? It's like inconceivable that he could learn from the past.
No, you don't understand. Donald Trump does not admit error. We're wrong. He's right. And as long as he believes that, and he has the power to affirm that, he's going to. Somebody asked me this morning, what's your worst nightmare? And I said, my worst nightmare is that Donald Trump doesn't learn the lessons and that we will therefore suffer the consequences. He's going to be president for 4 years. Now, he controls the Senate. He only has the House by 2 votes now, and that could change. I point out to people in 1931, the Republicans lost control of the House because of the death or resignation of members of the House. The Supreme Court is now firmly in his hands, as is the district courts, the appellate courts, because he's going to make the nominations. And this is something that should concern us all because it goes to the heart of American democracy.
Give me, on the way out here, John, a couple of words about Democratic
Are you leaving? Holy shit.
Somebody, Albert, will you tell John he's the one who's leaving? I don't want to have to tell him.
Albert, thank you.
The Democratic leadership, give me a word about that. You know, the AOC tried to ascend into a position of Democratic leadership last week, and there is a question as to the future of the party. Can you speak to that?
It's a long discussion because the Democratic Party has to reform. The first thing I would do if I were in charge is I would want somebody like Ray Bliss, who was a Republican tactician and chairman of the National Committee, to be the chair of the Democratic Party. They need to have someone who understands not the politics, but the structure of how you win an election. That's what Ray Bliss gave the Republicans between 1965 and 1968. Number 2, now is the time for the candidates, potential candidates, to be revealed. Let's examine them. Let's know who they are. And most important of all, the Democratic leadership in the House and Senate have to really articulate their goals clearly and precisely. And they must not be afraid to stand in opposition. The loyal opposition. Their opposition is not to the American system, but to what Donald Trump is trying to do to it. And they need to make that clear to the American people as well.
But when you look at the Democratic Party, John, and you take in those priorities to which you've just referred, do you see the next generation of leadership, or do you see it's time to graduate out some who you feel may not have fought or stood vigorously enough against some of what you're talking about?
No political party is static. There will be new people that we've never heard of who will come into the Democratic Party. I would remind you, Nobody really knew who Barack Obama was until he gave the keynote at the Democratic Convention in 2004. So you never know who's going to emerge. William Jennings Bryan delivered a speech, the Cross of Gold speech, and revolutionized the Democratic Party, taking it from a conservative party to basically a liberal party. So my sense is, I can't predict the future, but I can tell you that the Democrats need to have real political structure. They need to have a chairman of their national committee who understands politics. That has to be coordinated with the state parties. They have to find the right candidates. They have to go out and recruit candidates that will run under the Democratic banner who represent hope for the future. And so I have every confidence. This is a two-party system, whether you like it or not. And a third party in this country hasn't a chance of a snowball in hell. And we could go over the whole history of third parties. You and I talked about that when they were talking about a no-labels party.
As it turns out, though, probably in this election, there was, on some level, a relevance anyway to the third party. The third party spoiler, which is really the only role that third parties have.
It made no difference in this campaign. It made a difference in 2000. Yeah. It may have made a difference. I think Jill Stein made a difference in 2016, but they can't win. So if you want to see a loyal opposition, which is what the Democratic Party ought to brand itself as being, that's the way you proceed. And I have great faith in the future of both parties. You know, I really believe that if Donald Trump had been defeated, the Republicans would be going through the anguish of rebuilding their party. That's what happens when you lose.
Right.
And it's not a bad thing because it creates an evolution of power.
Barbara says, time for Nancy Pelosi to step down. She encouraged Joe to retire.
Well, Nancy's time is limited. She's no longer Speaker of the House. She'll sit there this term, and then there'll be a battle in San Francisco, probably between her daughter Christine and Scott Wiener, who's a member of the state Senate, for that congressional seat. The Republicans having a chance for a snowball in hell. The last Republican to hold that seat was Bill Maillard, and he left it in 1974 in order to become our ambassador to NATO. And he was replaced, as you know, by Phil Burton. So, by John Burton. The
new guard, you're saying, will just inevitably replace the old guard, and that is happening on some level.
But they're in their 80s.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, and sadly, we've seen money spoil politics to the point that it's just it's disgusting. I mean, you just see now unabashedly money funneling into these political campaigns and to the pocketbooks of so many of these politicians. And the Trump administration will be, I think it will be wildly corrupt to the point that some of the stuff we'll find out about it.
It's facilitating it. That's the simple reality. Money, Jess Unruh, the former leader of the California State Assembly, once said, is the mother's milk of politics. And it's true. Daniel Lurie would not be the mayor-elect of San Francisco, but for the fact that he put millions of his own money into the campaign. But then let me point out to you, John F. Kennedy would never have won the Democratic nomination in 1960 had not his father pumped millions into that campaign. So it depends on where you sit, whether it's a positive or a negative. But money is a corrupting influence.
The very last thing I want to ask you is about the Middle East. Syria has fallen. Tell me what the government of Syria now will be comprised of, how that changes. I mean, I understand this is very complex and a much longer conversation, how that changes the relationship of the U.S. to Syria. Certainly Russia ends up as a loser in this, right? They were a client state of the Russians, the Syrians. Can you just speak to the fall of Syria and what the future might be also?
Yeah, it's a huge impact on the Middle East. Remember, Russia is now withdrawing its base from Syria. Russia has no warm water ports except Vladivostok, which I would remind you is open only 4 months out of every year, hardly a warm water port. For the Russians, this was a terrible blow. It's a terrible blow to the Iranians because they also had a vested interest in support from Russia. And we now have a situation that's completely fluid. Nobody knows what's going to happen in Syria, whether it'll be a radical Islamic revolution, whether it will be a mainstream revolution. The one thing we know is there is no democracy in the Middle East except for Israel. Whatever you think of Israel's policies, they're a democracy. They hold elections. I doubt you'll see that in Syria.
You can find him across the podcast universe. Around the Political World with John Rothmann is the name of the podcast. It's a daily offering. You can find him here on Wednesdays, and this Saturday you'll join us in the holiday meetup. By the way,
I wouldn't miss it. I'm just waiting for the link. What time does it start? Tell us again.
5 p.m.
Oh, well, I'm going to
For
be
you,
there.
it's 5 p.m. It's 8 o'clock in the East, but you'll be in the West, 5 o'clock. Yeah.
And may I just ask, is it sold out yet?
I think there's one more spot because there was somebody who wanted to come, then you couldn't get it organized. But so there may be one more.
Those
chair.
of you who want to participate,
They do this to me all the time. I don't know what the hell they do it for.
And you can see it says sign up at our PayPal with
Yeah.
$50 donation to lock on a spot.
Yeah.
And meet up
And
with
just
your
put-
donation. This is
Yeah,
great.
put meet up with your donation and then send me a note at mtsmeetup@gmail.com. I'll tell you what, because Rothman has opened it back up, I will take anybody who wants to join on Saturday. I will keep it open through the end of the afternoon. So if you want to join, I will extend it one more day. So
May I
there it is.
just put in the plug, Mark? What you're doing with Kim and with Albert is such a good deed for all of us. And the Mark Thompson program deserves to be supported. I want you to know he doesn't pay me. I come on because I believe in what Mark is trying to do. And I want to urge you all to support him and sign up. And thank you, Mark, for opening it up just a few more people. I appreciate
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. Now we're excited to spend some time with you off the air. So a chance to hear John in kind of a kickback way. Just kind
And
of
you have a
chill
lot of
with
other
us.
people joining in too, right?
Oh, no, we do. Spencer Christian will be there. Nikki Maduro is going to come through. I appreciate what Pelosi has done for our city and country, says Spencer. But nobody I know wants her daughter in that seat, myself included. Time for someone new. Yeah.
Well, we'll see, but we'll have a lot to talk about. And is the program on Saturday is 1 hour?
It's 2 hours, but you can just come in for 10 minutes. You don't have to come in for the whole thing. Just come
You
in for an
think
hour.
I
if you
want to miss the excitement of a holiday party with Mark Thompson?
Well, you know who's
Are
going to
you
be there, who
kidding?
you talked politics with last time, is Josh Mankiewicz, whose dad, as you know, ran the campaign for McGovern and was a press secretary for RFK. RFK Jr.'s dad.
That's correct.
And Brian finally leaves you with this, John. A Hanukkah blessing to John and Mark and everyone on the show that enriches our week. A true blessing. This is the first Hanukkah candle on Christmas Day. I call it Chanamus. With love, Brian. That's great.
Brian, thank you very much. Brian's
Hanukkah
a
is
great
on
guy.
Christmas Day this year, right? It's at the same time as Christmas.
night.
Christmas
Christmas
night.
night, first night of Hanukkah.
Albert, do you have the thing I sent you of Smokey Robinson? Can you grab that real quick? I sent it to you yesterday. This is the magic of this show. If you haven't seen it, we'll get it for you in the next few minutes in case Albert can't organize it quickly. But my favorite thing every Hanukkah is Smokey Robinson wishing us a happy Hanukkah. Go ahead, Albert. Run a little of Smokey, please.
Happy Chanukah. I have no idea what Chanukah is, but happy Chanukah because they said so.
Give it to me from the beginning, please,
God
Albert,
bless
so we
you,
can
Brian.
hear him, please.
And
Thank you.
Happy Chanukah. I have no idea what Chanukah is, but happy Chanukah because they said so. Anyway, God bless you, babe, and enjoy Chanukah. Have a wonderful time.
So
Happy
that was
Chanukah.
his cameo. Okay, so somebody said they wanted to, get a Hanukkah greeting from Smokey Robinson. So you go to Cameo and you pay a certain amount, and then they just write it out, Hanukkah, but he pronounced it Chanukah, and it's still my favorite. I just love it. All right, happy Chanukah. We'll see you, John. It's Saturday.
Thank you.
John Rothmann, everybody. Loving it. Loving it.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Happy holidays, everybody, from all of us here on the show. Still to come this hour, the wonderful Belinda Waymouth. Belinda leads us through a segment called It's the Planet, Stupid. It's all about the environment and the planet, and I hope you'll enjoy it. She always has great stuff, so we'll have that at the bottom of this hour. I am wondering, Kim, if I should jam some news in here. It's either that or Law and Disorder. What do you like?
It's always, we like when you say to jam the news in. Let's just jam it.
Yeah, I think you got to jam it sometimes. You know what I mean? Yeah. John Watson says on the Hanukkah thing, that actually sounds like the way it should be pronounced. I agree. I can't argue with that. The CH. But Chanukah, Hanukkah, whatever. Again, happy non-denominational holiday. This shirt available at our merch site, getmarkmerch.com. I know what I will do. I will, out of my new mug, it just arrived today. I will have a sip of coffee. This is the mug that is the "We could try ignoring it, sir" mug. You know, yeah, it's really good. Yeah.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
Yes, it's delicious. This is the vertical logo. There's also a horizontal logo that's just been introduced. Can you see how this goes just all the way horizontally around?
Oh, yeah.
This is kind of cool. This is a new design from Courtney. So you can order either the traditional or you go with the... I kind of like this one now also. I don't know.
I like the big logo.
I like the big logo, Mark. Give it to me big.
That's
yeah.
right.
I
Wow.
like it.
Yeah.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
Yes, we could try ignoring it. That mug is only $12. Thank you, everybody. Is there a bonus MT time on KFI tonight? Yeah, those in Southern California, or just if you want to check it out on iHeartRadio, I guess. I'm on KFI this afternoon, 4 to 7 Pacific. Yeah, all week. And which is making my life, I love KFI, I love being on the radio, but it's definitely this week is just a really intense week. Coming back, jet lagged, got a cold, blah, blah, blah. So, anyway, but that's, that's on my complaining show where I complain about all the...
Put that coffee down.
Yes, it's...
I thought this was the complaining show. Is there a different show that we do?
Oh, you're right.
complaints on?
Actually, this is the complaining show.
Oh,
Please,
thank
let me
you.
get back to... I'm going to cook up some more complaints. And while I do that, I will listen to my darling Kim. Smash the like button like a boss.
Smash it with your iron rod.
Yeah, do it hard. Man, you got to smash it, brother. Come on.
Smash it with your iron rod.
Do it for the chit girl. Yeah, come on. Kim's news, and we continue. Law and Disorder, and It's the Planet Stupid still to come. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister, and this report is sponsored by Coachella-Valley-Coffee.com. The Federal Reserve is lowering rates for the third time this year. It is cutting interest rates by 0.25 percentage point. Fed officials began lowering rates this fall from a 23-year high of 5.5% as inflation eased after the pandemic. As mentioned on the Mark Thompson Show, former Congressman Matt Gaetz says he engaged in embarrassing but not criminal behavior when he was single. The Florida Republican spoke after reports of the House Ethics Committee will indeed release a report which put him in a bad light. Facing an uphill battle in the Senate, Gaetz resigned from Congress and withdrew his name from consideration to become Attorney General in the Trump administration. President Biden says those unidentified drones people have been so concerned about pose no danger to the public. As he left the White House on his way to Delaware, the president said, "There is nothing nefarious, but they're checking it all out." President Biden's remarks follow yesterday's closed-door intelligence briefing for lawmakers on Capitol Hill.
Of course, you would expect them to say that, even if there were something to worry about.
Nothing
you don't want
nefarious.
to panic. Nothing to see here, folks. It's all normal. I used to get that when I was on local news for many years, when there was for example, a missile launch from Vandenberg. There'd be like a light up in the sky, and the assignment desk would be just besieged by calls saying, people panic. What is this?
Right.
And so I'd go on during the newscast and say, many called us and said they've seen this light in the sky and were concerned about what it is. And it is just a routine launch from Vandenberg Air Force Base. Then I would take a pause and I would say, at least that's what they want you to believe. And so I say it in this case.
Stir the pot, Mark.
Yeah, I'd say in this case. I'm sure everything's fine. At least that's what they want us to believe. I do think I don't see a threat from these drones, but I haven't really looked at it carefully. If somebody has actually seen something interesting on it, please send it along. I see a lot of copycats with the drones. I've also seen reports that these drones are immense, like the size of SUVs, but I haven't seen any pictures like that. All the drone pictures I've seen are pictures of drones at night, and they have those lights on them. So we know they're not spy drones. Spy drones don't have lights. I don't know. It's confusing, but in any case, we'll watch it. And apparently, the president says nothing to be concerned with.
No, nothing to see here. Move along. Who's not happy today is Elon Musk. He said this morning that Congress should not pass the government funding bill, the one that was negotiated by House Speaker Mike Johnson. But that bill is likely going to pass anyway. And even though Musk has been against it, he said it could mean some trouble for the whole government efficiency DOGE task force. If you have the money sitting there, you try to cut the budget, he doesn't want it passed. The United States Supreme Court will be hearing arguments over a law that would ban TikTok. The law requires ByteDance, the owner of TikTok, to sell the popular video sharing app or be banned. It's set to go into effect January 19th. Now the company is asking the United States Supreme Court to block the law while it appeals a lower court ruling that upheld it. Oral arguments are set for January 10th. So we're cutting it pretty close there. President-elect Trump has signaled that he may intervene and stop the ban once he's been sworn back into office. Luigi Mangione is facing murder and terrorism charges in the killing of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. Mangione is accused of gunning down Thompson on a Manhattan street earlier this month. The Manhattan District Attorney's Office announced yesterday Mangione is charged with 1 count of first-degree murder in the furtherance of terrorism and 2 counts of second-degree murder, including 1 as an act of terrorism. California helping get the funds together for a project to try to limit sewage from seeping across the border into San Diego. The state is putting up $5 million for a pilot project to install floating trash booms across the Tijuana River. The project in San Diego County is looking to stop large items in the trash and sewage flows from clogging up the wastewater channels. The governor's office says the booms, made out of steel, plastic, and partially recycled material, are an effort to stop things like tires and washing machines that are flowing into San Diego from Mexico over the next 2 storm seasons.
It's a real problem. It's a real problem. There is legit pollution that is flowing into San Diego, and this is a real issue. Yeah.
It's gone, the days of the past when you could wander across the USC campus reading the campus newspaper in one hand, backpack slung over your shoulder, sipping some coffee in the other. No more. USC's student-run newspaper, the Daily Trojan, will no longer be printed daily. The university says significant funding cuts will begin in the upcoming spring semester. So the paper will be printed 3 days a week instead of 5, and student journalists on the Daily Trojan staff will no longer be paid for their work. USC Student Life says the Daily Trojan has incurred annual deficits of more than $100,000 during the last 3 years, which the university has covered. You'd think at USC $100,000 wouldn't be very much, right? Fund the newspaper.
Yeah, I'm surprised. They are a very wealthy institution, USC. Please. I don't understand why they wouldn't fund the newspaper. By the way, I mean, our college newspaper, there was no payment at all. We just all volunteered.
I'm surprised that they get paid for it. The Daily Trojan, by the way, has been in circulation since 1912. So, jeez, come on.
Wow. I really, you'd think they could raise $100,000 and probably in 5 minutes if they just
Right.
picked up the phone and asked some of the alums.
Ridiculous.
No.
Salesforce is on an artificial intelligence hiring spree. The
Not to
company
interrupt,
plans-
but to interrupt, Spencer says, I used to have coffee and weed at, it's not at UCSC.
UCSC.
Yeah, that's
that makes
different.
more
All
sense.
right.
Yeah.
I was going to say,
Where
wow.
are my weed smokers at?
Yeah. They're at UCSC, apparently. All right.
Salesforce plans to bring on 2,000 employees to sell AI-enhanced products and services. New sales reps will focus on the second generation of Agent Force, which becomes available in February. Doesn't Agent Force sounds kind of sinister?
It does. It does. You're right about that.
Instagram will bring in half of Meta's U.S. advertising revenue in 2025. Forget Facebook. It's all Insta all the time. According to data from eMarketer, the social media platform Instagram is expected to generate $32 billion in advertising income. That's a 24% increase over last year. And Tom Cruise gets a big award. He is awarded the highest Navy honor for a civilian, the Distinguished Public Service Award.
Wow.
Tuesday.
Oh my God.
Wow, that's great.
The Secretary of the Navy, Carlos Del Toro, presented Tom Cruise. You know how old Tom Cruise is?
Oh, that's a great question. How old is Tom Cruise? Yeah, let's ask everybody. How old is Tom Cruise, everyone?
Don't look it up. Don't
look it up, but put it in the chat. What is your guess? 64 says Trevor Starr. Wow, is he 64? Man, that's 95 says John. All right, let's have serious. 52 says Nancy. 60 says Wes. 62
Scientology.
says Kathleen.
That's correct. We'll get a correct answer right there.
Lee Kopp, 53. Roberto, 56. What's the correct answer?
62.
Wow.
Tom Cruise is 62 as he rides his motorcycle off of cliffs and dangles from helicopters. Yes, he is 62. He got the award for outstanding contributions to the Navy and the Marine Corps at Long Cross Studios near London. Tom Cruise, they say, has spent nearly 4 decades as an unwavering supporter of the men, women, and families of the Navy and the Marine Corps.
Right on.
2 of his biggest movies, Top Gun and Top Gun Maverick, celebrate the world of naval aviators.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I didn't think of that. Okay.
Yeah. Cruise said in accepting the award, I admire all of the servicemen and women I know in life. Something that is very true to me, he said, is that to lead is to serve. And I know that to my core, he said. I see that in the servicemen and the servicewomen. He also, by the way, in addition to Top Gun movies, was in Born on the 4th of July, A Few Good Men, Mission Impossible series that was all celebrated during the ceremony. So
I'll tell you something. Tom Cruise is a great actor. He really is. And he won me over as someone who would support him from the standpoint of his acting from the movie that you mentioned, Born on the 4th of July.
Oh, he was
I mean,
incredible
that is
in
an
movie.
incredible film and an incredible performance.
Yeah.
And, this guy who, I get it, he's an action hero and all this other stuff. He's pretty amazing from that standpoint, especially when I consider he's 62. Oh, my God.
Right.
But his acting chops are real. And I got to give the guy a lot of credit. Yeah, Tropic Thunder. I forgot he was in Tropic Thunder. And he asked to be in Tropic Thunder, Mo. Anyway, he didn't fit well into the role of Jack Reacher. That's true. Again, that's, but wow.
You want to see the poster I had as a teenage girl on my wall?
Yeah.
I'll show it to you. This is when I became you became a Tom Cruise believer on Born on the 4th of July. I became one.
Oh,
in
sure.
the
All the right
80s.
moves.
All the right moves, holding the football with a Letterman's jacket.
What a guy. Yeah.
That's my Tom Cruise picture.
There's never been
right there.
anything like this.
So that's in my head. When I think the guy is 62, it's hard to, think about this cute young guy, and he's now 62. That's how long I've loved him.
And an evil Scientologist, says Les.
Yeah,
all
and
right?
true. All true.
Terrible person, great actor, says Phineas. I see. Well, now it's coming out. This is the show that I love. Yeah. No one escapes. No, you can't say
that's real.
You can't say anything nice about anyone without being Best performance was Taps, says a Champagne. Yeah. I love his acting, says Delette. Amazing. Just a weirdo, though.
He is a weirdo. He is a weirdo. It's unfortunate. It doesn't take away from his good acting and his good looks, but yes.
Yeah, there you go.
Lastly, the huge Mega Millions jackpot is still on a pre-holiday roll. Tuesday night's grand prize unclaimed, so it makes the next drawing coming up Friday worth at least $825 million. Lottery officials say it's the largest Mega Millions jackpot that's ever been up for grabs in the month of December. Okay. $825 million. Happy Hanukkah. Happy Chanukah to you too.
Happy Chanukah, kids. That's great. What a great way to bring in the Chanukah season. Yeah.
This report is sponsored by Coachella Valley Coffee. And the more of this vanilla tea I drink, the more addicted I become. It's become a bit of an obsession over here, Mark, I have to tell you.
I loved hearing that. I love hearing it. Yeah.
They've got the holiday blend coffee you're showing there, too, Howard.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. Right.
What's
and
in
they
the cup
have
today?
Today this might be the holiday blend. I have 3 different grinders, and I replaced the coffee, and I was, not feeling well, so I wasn't keeping track of what it is. Let me just...
I'm missing the heart.
It tastes like a kind of a...
There you go.
Kind of a... It tastes like a milder blend, so I think maybe it is. That Eclipse, by the way, that you just passed, that's insanely good. Oh, my God. Right there. The Eclipse blend. Now, that's a French roast. It is dark. Look at it. You see how the circle there at the bottom?
Yeah, you like the dark roast.
I love my dark roast. Oh. The Eclipse is a great one. I recommend it. But you got to like a dark, rich bean. Remember, they're all hand-roasted. All the beans are hand-roasted, and I'll remind you that it is all fresh crop. So it is the first crop off. These beans haven't been lying around for months and months and months. That's what makes these coffees so special. So definitely use the discount code MARKT at checkout for coffee, tea, or anything on the site. And get in on the party. Coachella Valley party.
I'm Kim McAllister. This is The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Who's Mark Thompson?
And this is their new host. Good day, sir.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
You cannot say you love your country.
Morning.
Where are my weed smokers at?
What's a guilty pleasure you have?
They do this to me all the time. I don't know what the hell they do it for.
My bad. I'm sorry.
There's never been anything like this.
What can you tell us about the scene?
What he's got going here is a situation.
Y'all can all go to hell, and I'm going back to Texas.
Big shout out.
Smash it with your iron rod.
Yeah, right on, everybody. Right on. Glad you could be here. Smash it with your iron rod. I love it. It's true. You need to smash it. Smash that like button if you could. It helps us in the
iron rod.
YouTube universe. They come for the magic, and they stay for law and disorder.
In the criminal justice system, the people,
pimps, addicts, thieves, bums, winos, girls who can't keep an address, and men who don't care,
are represented by 2 separate yet equally important groups.
A cop, a flatfoot, a bull, a dick, John Law. You're the fuzz, the heat, you're poison, you're trouble, you're bad news.
These are their stories.
Well, as mentioned by Kim, the Supreme Court will decide on whether a looming ban on TikTok in the U.S. violates the First Amendment. The High Court put the case on an unusually accelerated timeline. They're going to hear arguments on January 10th. And the reason for that, of course, is because 9 days later, there is a law that is slated to take effect that would ban TikTok from this country. and it would force essentially ByteDance, the Chinese company, it would force them to sell it. So TikTok, I think, is not going to go away, as I've told you before. What will likely happen is A, it will continue as it is, or B, it will be into a forced ownership, and someone in the U.S., an entity in the U.S., a consortium of investors in the U.S. will buy TikTok, that part that's essentially turned over by ByteDance. That's a great deal for a handful of investors who are already circling, because they're going to get it at a forced sale price, right? You're not in a situation, if you're TikTok, to get top dollar. You're going to have to sell it. You're basically selling it at gunpoint. And so there already have been many American business people who have expressed interest in this, among them Jared Kushner. So that is what's happening with the High Court and with TikTok. Meantime,
Jared Kushner wants to buy TikTok?
Yeah, he does.
Wow.
No, it's crazy. I mean, he's sitting on that $2 billion in Saudi cash. So
Sure. Got to spend it somewhere.
Yeah. These stories happen every Christmas and Chinooka season. Criminals couldn't steal the holiday spirit, but they did steal that which this guy, who's known as the Hood Santa of Long Beach, does every year. He brings countless underprivileged kids toys and greetings of the holidays. But Saturday night, a music festival was held at the Belasco Theater in downtown Los Angeles. Attendees required to donate a toy valued at $20 or more, and the toys were all placed inside a large U-Haul truck in front of the theater. But later that night, thieves struck. The guy who was watching the truck, listen to this. This is like that jewel thief thing that happened. Remember the jewel thieves? One guy goes in, the other guy falls asleep, and then these jewel thieves move in, and then they just ransack all the jewels from that truck. Well, this case, the guy who was watching the truck that was now filled with toys went to get some coffee. When he came back, he noticed that the truck had been broken into, said Tito Rodriguez, who is the Hood Santa. They tried to steal the truck. When they failed at that, they broke the back of the roll-up door, cut it with some bolt cutters, and wiped us out. They took took about half the toys.
What the hell is going on in the United States of America?
It's
That
not.
would take some time to steal all that stuff. That's a lot of toys.
Yeah, and why do it? I mean,
they do this to me all the time. I don't know what the hell they do it
why
for.
you'd ever. I don't know. I don't
Where's
get it.
that drop? Someone's looking to spoil our Christmas.
Yeah, where is the Christmas drop? That's the.
Someone did this to spoil our Christmas.
Thank you for that. That's exactly right. Well, also, there is this. Hana Kobayashi speaking out after her month-long disappearance. The Hawaii woman, 30 years old, back in the U.S., she's spoken out after her mysterious month-long disappearance from LAX that made national headlines. Albert, were you bothered by the fact that Hana Kobayashi was missing for that length of time? Seems like the kind of thing that you might actually be disturbed by.
It was a really interesting story because her dad went to go look for her too, and then he somehow died in that process while she was missing, and then she just comes back like nothing. And it's just, there's a lot that hasn't been uncovered yet. So
Exactly. I think Albert is right. The story is one that we only know a little bit about. At daybreak on December 15th, she said, I crossed the border back into the United States. My focus now is on my healing, my peace, and my creativity. I am deeply grateful to my family and everyone who has shown me kindness and compassion during this time. The leads in this case, after she went missing on November 8th, pointed to a camera footage series of her at the Grove retail complex in Los Angeles, a sighting with an unknown man at a train station, and then a series of cryptic texts sent to family members. So during this search, as Kim was saying, her dad, Ryan, died by suicide after searching for her for 13 days in L.A. About 3 weeks into the search, LAPD reported that she was seen crossing the Mexico border and was subsequently declared voluntary missing. Then on December 11th, she was found after nearly 5 weeks and was with her aunt, with whom other family members had cut ties during the search.
This story is so weird.
Yeah, it really is. I was unaware of everything that was happening in the media while I was away, and I'm still processing it all, she said. I kindly ask for respect for myself, my family, and my loved ones as I navigate through this challenging time. Thank you for your understanding. Well, a January 6th rioter tried to join the Russian military to fight against Ukraine. A man on probation for his role in the January 6th attack attempted to flee the country and volunteer for the Russian military's fight against Ukraine.
What?
Yeah. Quote, his intent was not a temporary trip. He intended to permanently relocate to another country. According to prosecutors, they wrote that in the charging documents. It's a 6-page memo to the U.S. district judge, and it continues. His planned travel was for the express purpose of joining a foreign army to take up arms against one of the country's allies and in opposition to this country's foreign policy. Prosecutors say that this guy, Kevin Loftus, should get a 6-month jail sentence, the maximum that he could have faced for his misdemeanor crime at the Capitol. And they want him to serve every day of it. It's a bizarre twist in an otherwise normal case stemming from the riot on January 6th, when thousands of supporters, of course, took over the Capitol grounds to impede the transfer of power from Trump to Biden. He was an active duty soldier in the U.S. Army for 6 years, so he pleaded guilty to a single misdemeanor count of parading in the Capitol. He admitted, and then he was sentenced to 3 years of probation. Prosecutors say that when he tried to check into a flight from Dallas to, Tbilisi, Georgia, he was blocked when Turkish Airlines received a security flag. 2 days later, he drove hundreds of miles north of the Dallas area without following court-ordered procedures to seek permission before leaving northern Texas. He was then arrested in Iowa on October 31st. And he admitted from Georgia to Russia, where he planned to seek temporary residency. He said he'd already sent $1,200 to help purchase equipment for Russian soldiers. Pretty wild. A review of his phone by the FBI showed that he'd been communicating on Telegram with an account under the moniker Grisha Putin, which was advising him on how to travel to Russia. And he was discussing taking a Russian language class and wanted asylum and also looking for a focus on artillery.
Okay,
classes
question.
in artillery as well.
Is it, maybe I'm naive in not knowing the law on this because I really have no desire to do it anyway, but is it against the law to fight for another country besides America? You can't, is there some type of,
I think that in this case you're fighting against an American ally, and it may come down to that. Like if you wanted to be, there are many Americans who are mercenary soldiers,
Sure.
And so I suspect that if you're a mercenary soldier, you can fight wherever. But if you're fighting against American forces or American interests, maybe that's where the shoe pinches.
You got a problem. Yeah.
Yeah. But by the way, he's not the first January 6th defendant to try to flee the country. I mean, that's been happened. The FBI been happening. The FBI repeatedly sought help in grabbing those who have been trying to leave the country after the J6 conviction. So with that, we conclude Law and Disorder.
Tune in again next time for more Law and Disorder on The Mark Thompson Show.
All right, that's it. Let's roll. Hey, let's be careful out there.
Like button, smash that like button. Please like and subscribe to the show. It helps us. Mostly, though, share the show. If you see something or there's some clip or other element of the show that you like, please put it on your social media. That helps bring people here. We build subscriptions that way, we build our footprint that way, and we just build an audience, and we can sustain ourselves that way. And of course, thanks to our Patreon and PayPal folks, that community keeps us going. Without you guys, we would not be on the air. So I appreciate all the super stickers, all the super chats, all the ways that you help support this show. And one of the enduring ways in which the community supports us is through Patreon and PayPal. So truly from my heart, I've said it to Kim, I've said it to many people when I discuss the show. I say we wouldn't be on the air without these people who are our Patreon and PayPal supporters, because this isn't a hobby. We have to make payroll every month, and we only do that with your help. So thank you very much for that. But the thing that costs no money is smashing the like button, so smash it.
With your iron rod.
All right, we continue. I am thinking...
The Mark Thompson Show.
Is Belinda ready? She is.
Yep, she's standing by.
All right, let's do it. This is It's the Planet, stupid.
The planet Earth.
Some call me nature.
I am very passionate about the planet
Earth. A living, breathing planet capable of sustaining whatever life forms we see fit to deposit on it.
Spock, judging by the pollution content of the atmosphere, I believe we have arrived.
It's the planet stupid.
No. It's the planet, stupid.
Guide for It's the Planet, stupid is Belinda Waymouth, eco-journalist.
Good morning.
And hello to you, Belinda.
Hi.
Albert, do you have all of Belinda's visuals and supporting materials that she sent? I want to make sure that those are in place before we continue.
I'd hope so. I think I do. I have the one from 2 hours ago, and I have one just recent that she just added to.
Great. I love that. So
just added the cow burps, because that's a cool story about making climate-friendly cows, or making cows climate-friendly. Yeah.
So, Belinda, where would you like to start?
Well, I really wanted to talk about what happened. We didn't really discuss it on the show at the time, but it was a really big environmental moment when the Klamath River, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, Klamath River on the California-Oregon border, the final dam came down. There were 4 dams on it for a century, a 400-mile stretch of the river. Federal approval for the removal of these 4 dams was only given in 2022. So the fact that by 2024, August 2024, the end of August, the last one came down was really huge. Yep, there it is. There it is, the river.
Now, when the dam comes down, Belinda, from an environmental standpoint, what does that mean? Why is that important?
Okay, so hugely important. It's really important for all the native tribes, the indigenous tribes that have lived in this area for centuries, because of the species, that their culture, and also, they eat these fish, but it's also their culture is really about the Chinook and the other salmon species that are there, and also all the other species. But the thing we know about dams is their reign is over. And yes, that pun is totally intentional. Dams block a river, they hold the water, and then we release it to put through the electro-hydro plant, and we produce all this electricity. And they have been an incredibly important source of energy. And they are, and this is really significant, so this sort of change that we're going through with sort of realizing how damaging dams are to the ecosystems, because all this silt builds up behind the dam. The Chinook salmon, which have their spawning grounds way inside, way inland in fresh water, then go out to the ocean, and then they come back up the river to spawn. They can't do that when dams are there. And the silt that would be feeding ecosystems as it comes down the river, that gets blocked, and eventually these dams get dammed. They get dammed up by their own silt, so they get rendered inoperable. And the other thing that's crazy about this river was that it was only supplying 2% of Pacific Core, which got its electricity, some of its electricity profile from these dams. It was only 2% of the whole profile. But it was very controversial because there are a lot of farmers who really benefited from these dams, because what the dams on this river did was they redirected the routes of the rivers and lakes. I mean, lakes got drained, to make these dams, and they enabled farming to happen. So when back in 2021, when there were big droughts, there were real battles. This is really big when you see water being restored to its rightful watershed, to flow in the way that it's meant to flow. It's big, really, really big. And the reason why this is such an environmental win is this took decades of activism on behalf of conservationists and the local native tribes. And the thing that was really clever that these tribes did, I mean, you can see this is a salmon that is really struggling because there's not enough water. And the thing also, when the water is really shallow like that, the salmon get on top of each other, which means any kind of virus or parasite that salmon is carrying gets transferred to the salmon that it's, sort of basically swimming on top of. And so parasites and viruses have also caused this incredible drop in population numbers. I mean, species numbers, not just in salmon, but then other species on this river went down by 90%. So really huge. And I sent a link from an Instagram account of an organization called Medi, and they do this fantastic media on positive news stories, because the tribes that wanted to have their waterways restored have been stockpiling 18 billion seeds to get ready for this moment when the rivers would run free again, of 100 different native species. That's them enacting what's going to happen. There's the water coming back. But they have been getting ready for this incredible restoration project, because what happens when you upset habitat, like, what happens when you have a dam and you're stopping water going down its natural course, or the sediment buildup happens. When you mess with basically the land around it, you leave that land really, really exposed and vulnerable to invasive species and to erosion. And so what these tribes did was they stockpiled 18 billion seeds to be ready of native species that would help stop erosion and stop invasive species bound to get in. And here they are, seeding this land to restore it. So it's amazing. And
that's wonderful. Just wonderful.
Yeah, it's really huge. And it's a real blueprint for what can happen with other dams around the world that are being taken out. And, we talked about this on the show a couple of weeks ago with Zambia, because Zambia was, with the Zambezi River being one of their main sources, they were set to be at 100% renewables, but completely relying on hydro and dams. But what stopped that? Well, in February, the Zambezi was a trickle. There was no electricity to be produced because there was no river flow. So the thing about dams, and the reason why their reign, pun again, is over, is because the technology is completely outdated. We're living in a post-dam era. Their technology is outdated. There are better technologies for renewable energy. The water gets warm, and the warm water is super bad for, a dam, basically, reservoir that's holding water can heat up way more than flowing water. So that's bad for the species that are in it. And then they're absolutely vulnerable to climate change and droughts. If there's a drought and there's no water flowing, the dam doesn't work. In Zambia, they were without electricity because they relied 84% on their dams and hydro, and only 13% on coal. So they had to switch to coal. They were lucky if they got 3 hours of electricity a day. And that's for the 43% of the country that is hooked up to electricity. You've got 57% of the country that doesn't get electricity. So for the 43% that were, they were down to zero, except for those 3 hours a day that they were, then getting from coal. And I mention all of this sort of for this bigger picture of dams and where we need to go. And we need climate change proof renewable energy sources. And so that's why, obviously wind and solar and, battery storing energy that can then release it, the power that they use to put those, we've talked about them before, the huge weights into a building. And then when you need the electricity, you let the weights all fall, and the the energy.
It's incredible. Still, when you talk about it, it's incredible technology.
I know. Yeah, it is. And so we really need to be, pivoting and focusing on renewable energy that will work. And of course, in the 1900s when we were building all these dams, they seemed great. They seemed fantastic. And water was this plentiful, resource. But we're living in different times, so we have to innovate.
Let me ask you about this red algae feed.
Yeah.
It's kind of a wild thing.
Yeah.
Explain, you'll explain what it does, but explain, there's a problem that it's addressing, right?
Yeah. So methane is, it's a small part of the greenhouse gases. 75% roughly is, of our greenhouse gases is carbon dioxide, and only 16% is methane. But methane, over its lifetime, 25 times stronger as a heat trapper than carbon. So methane is very important, and 40% of the methane comes from agriculture, and I'm afraid to say that it comes from our friends, the lovely bovines, the cows, and it comes from let's just call it their off-gassing, shall we?
Right.
Their
flatulence or whatever.
Yeah, their flatulence, and also their burps. Their burps are super methane laden as well. So what happens is the main source of the problem, because if you have cows on a feedlot, you're feeding them. So you can put this red algae into their food. And the red algae looks delicious, right? Yummy, totally yummy.
It's probably not bad.
Yeah. No, well, I mean, I eat seaweed. I think it's pretty yum. So the algae does this thing inside a cow to reduce the methane, because when they're eating, grass, it's super fibrous, and there's a lot of methane produced. Obviously, it's one of the the waste products of the digestion of the grass. So your ruminants, your cows are out there in a grass field, really building up some flatulence and some burps. If the cows are on a feedlot or dairy cows, you can put this red algae fairly easily into their the troughs, the food containers that they're eating out of. But how do you do that for cows that are out grazing in the field? But what these red algae food, producers for specifically for cattle have done is they've produced a machine that the cows, they want to eat the pellets because they're yummy, and they've laden them with red algae. And the other thing is the cows have to put their heads inside these contraptions, and when they do that, there's a little monitor that's measuring how much methane is in their breath. And
wow.
Yeah. So super cool. And the thing is, as soon as they start eating the red algae, it affects the methane production right away. And even if they stop eating the red algae, they've still got less methane that they're giving out for 5 weeks following these test periods. But if you could feed it to them all the time, because we're not getting rid of our cows, that's not going to happen. But let's make cows climate friendly. Let's help cows, to help us. And so this is, one way that we can do it. I mean, they're doing all sorts of amazing things with agriculture. There's another story about how I think it's a milk producing, so it's a dairy operation, and they're using the heat that the cows give off, to heat their buildings and to heat other buildings, collecting the energy that comes from the animals, collecting energies, at the point source, like where heat is actually made, rather than, we have to go and create all this electricity using hydro or other things. What about where we've actually got a source of it? If we can, capture that heat and use it, we're at the source, so we're not going to have all the energy waste that happens with what we see as more traditional ways of generating energy. So I'm just really excited about the innovations that are happening, and the reason. And Albert, if you could put it up, the link to EcoMedi, because there are only 4 of these people, and they are putting out these reels on Instagram, and they're my Christmas present, my holiday present to our audience, because they and especially for you, Kim, because there's good news in these things, and there's a fantastic one that just came in, the most recent one, about how they're using actual real life clams in water treatment facilities because the clams react and tell you if the water is clean or not. And they don't, and the clams are kind of held in place for a while, but they only work them for a few months and then they release them back into the habitat and they bring in new clams. But clams are a great way, and they're using them. I think the only place in the US that's using them is in Minnesota in a water treatment facility. But this is a natural way rather than using, chemicals and science. We can actually use, are they a bivalve they're not a mollusk clams? I think they're a bivalve. Use a little, bivalve from our natural, and you just need 5 of them per water facility or, depending on how big it is. And they will let you know, the water is clean, or no, this water is yucky, don't drink it. And then they say you retire them very quickly because they've done a good job. They've had a desk job for a while. They've worked hard, set them, free again. And also they don't want them to get too acclimatized to that water in a water, treatment facility. They want them, back out in their,
their natural, state.
Habitat.
Yeah. Bring in the new clams. Yes, I wanted to tell you regarding your red seaweed story that I interviewed Albert Strauss, who is the CEO and founder of Strauss Family Farms here in the Marin-Sonoma County area in the North Bay. And they were the pioneer and the farm that tested the red seaweed. And they had extraordinary success measuring the amount of methane coming off of the cows. And also, and to talk about being carbon neutral, the seaweed was being grown and harvested right off the coast of Marin County. So it wasn't very far away from the farm. So they're really excited about this research. The results were incredible, and they're hoping that it spreads. So given your story, I'm thinking that it is spreading and that this is going to be something that we can do, because you hear the stories about methane being a problem, right? And the dairy industry, agriculture being a major contributor to global the climate crisis. So something like this it's great news, and it's good that it's continuing and that this is growing.
Yeah. And this is the thing, and the thing that I keep saying, and to me, it's such a pity that I have to come on the show and tell our audience, hey, go to Instagram and look up EcoMedi. This should be on the front page of, our newspapers telling us that these amazing, inventions, innovations are happening. And I'm really very happy to hear about Strauss milk, because that's what I have in my tea every morning, Kim, because I like that milk. And I was really hoping that, you remember we were talking about the milk that they were making out of casein that they were fermenting in barrels. But of course, all that stuff is going towards mozzarella and ice cream. And I'm like, couldn't they just make some, milk for people like me who, I try to, do almond and oat milk in my tea, but it just doesn't taste quite
well,
the
you're
same.
going to love this about Strauss then. Albert Strauss says, the red seaweed is a critical solution toward completing my goal of carbon neutral dairy farming models by 2023 and creating an opportunity for supplying dairy farms to replicate this model by the end of the decade. He's very, very invested in it. He says the innovation demonstrates livestock can be part of the primary solution to reduce our climate impact. So he's on board with you, Belinda.
Yeah, and Strauss milk comes in a glass bottle, and you wash it, and then you take it back to the store, and you get, $3 back. It does have a plastic lid on it. I wish it still had the old tinfoil ones, the aluminium, but they don't have those anymore. They have to, they're plastic. So yeah, that's so cool. Yeah, so that's some good news, and happy holidays for our audience, because there are all these amazing things that are happening, and I really, encourage listeners to go, seek out this good news, because there is so much of it around, and everyone from The Guardian to, David Byrne of Talking Heads, he has a newsletter, Reasons to be Cheerful. There's lots of good news out there. You just have to, unfortunately, really seek it out.
It gets crowded out by the bad stuff for sure.
Yeah, all the time.
Well, we appreciate you so much. I don't think we'll talk to you again, because Christmas is Wednesday, you're right, which is next Wednesday. So will be dark on Christmas, but we'll be thinking of you. And for a moment or two, I'm not saying it's the only thing we're going to think of that day, but it will be a moment for you. And we appreciate all your support all year long, all your information, all your optimism, which is extraordinary given this environment. And we look forward to next year. So thanks, Belinda.
Oh, absolutely my pleasure, Mark. Absolutely my pleasure. I'm so
Belinda
glad we have
Waymouth,
the show.
everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Bye-bye.
indeed.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. It's the Planet Stupid for today.
More.
It's the Planet Stupid.
No. It's the planet, stupid.
Next time, only on The Mark Thompson Show.
Right on. Right on.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Yeah, we are excited as we wrap things up. Look toward tomorrow. What's on tomorrow's show, Kim?
David Katz is coming up tomorrow.
David Katz is
fun.
right.
Yeah.
And talk the law with David Katz. I don't want to leave today's show without a quick mention of this story, which I am still, if it were me.
The Mark Thompson Show.
If it were me, I just couldn't take it. I'd be the wrong person to have up there on this NASA flight. You know. Herschel Walker is going to Nassau, as noted, but this is NASA. And the astronauts who were sent up there, Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams, they were sent up there for a week to 10 days to just sort of two things: road test, I think, new technology from Boeing, and also to resupply the International Space Station.
Sure.
Well, the Boeing Starliner was a mess, and now the Boeing Starliner is viewed as such a mess that they don't want to use it, NASA doesn't, to pick up those two astronauts. So they got the word, hey guys, it's not going to be a week or 10 days. It's going to be a few months before we can pick you up, because we're going to have to employ different technology. We'll probably launch on a SpaceX platform. And as you know, those uniforms that they're wearing, you can see that Boeing is there on the sleeve. Those uniforms are more than just uniforms. Those are spacesuits that won't work with the new technology that's being sent up there to rescue them. So those Boeing spacesuits are worthless now, and now they'll need new spacesuits. So there's a lot going on here. But Butch and Sonny, or is that how she says her name, or Suni?
I would say Suni,
Yeah. They are both, it would appear, good sports about this. The 8 days to 8 months thing seems to have not hit them too hard. They're not now going to return, though, because the situation is constantly being updated by NASA, and it seems every update isn't, hey, guess what? Good news, we're going to come get you sooner. It's all, hey, guess what? Bad news, it's going to be a little longer. And they will be looking at end of March or even April because of the delay in launching their replacements into space. Remember, those two will have to be replaced. So a fresh crew needs to launch before those two can return. And the next mission has been bumped more than a month, according to NASA. The next crew of 4 was supposed to launch in February, followed by these two returning home by the end of that month, along with 2 other astronauts. But SpaceX needs more time to prepare the brand new capsule for liftoff. That launch is now scheduled for no earlier than late March.
Oh, man. How many months have they been up there extra?
I think 9.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal. I mean, I can't imagine it. I would be going nuts. But it does take a very special psyche to do it, to begin with, you know. So if you're at all claustrophobic, or if you're at all, you know, if you're not insanely patient. I mean, this is otherworldly patience that I see.
My
from
weed
these guys.
smokers at?
Yeah, it's pretty. It is an edible type situation. I don't think you can smoke weed in the spacecraft, but yeah, what a fiasco! It is like Gilligan's Island. That's exactly right. Boeing is the Gilligan of aerospace. Exactly. I mean, you know, the people on Gilligan's Island, they were supposed to go out for, what was it, a 3-hour tour, and they ended up for, 5 or 6 seasons there stuck on the island. But call Space Force, says Santi. Yeah. Isn't one of the astronauts ill? Is what Jim is asking. I don't know about that. Kim, maybe you can look into that.
Yeah.
In the movie, one of the astronauts is ill, for sure. I mean, in the movie they do, that would definitely be what you'd need. You know, the tick-tock of the clock and his illness or her illness. But I think with that...
The Mark Thompson Show.
What do I have to do, Albert? I ask you. I have to respond to some... I thought we were going to do a thing where we respond to these comments earlier in the show. Why do we always wait for the end of the show? I don't know.
We were just having such a great show. I didn't want to stop it, so we had to keep the momentum going there.
Because it was such a great show, I didn't want to stop it. All right.
Albert, thank you.
That was a good answer, though.
That was a very strong answer. That's why I left. Wes with a $5 super sticker. Thank you, Wes. Big shout out to you. Is there bonus MT time on KFI tonight? As already asked and answered, I will be on KFI this afternoon starting at 4. Trevor Starr in Hollywood, breaking fake news. Trump says he will now appoint Matt Gaetz to be ambassador to McDonald's Playland. Oh, wow. That is really
big shout out
to you, Trevor. Trevor will be at the meetup this Saturday. Kelly Malloy with a $5 super sticker.
Big shout out.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Appreciate that. Spencer says that crazy guy Herschel Walker is a disaster appointment. Well, I mean, yeah, you're right about
it. A werewolf can kill a vampire. Did you know that?
Yeah, that's good old Herschel on his way to the Bahamas. In honor of Phineas J. Whoopi and his remission, Karen donates $20. Phineas had cancer, I guess, and it's in remission, which is really cool. So big shout out to Phineas and to Karen for being so cool as to recognize it with a donation to the show. That's really, really cool. Randy says the Trump team got all bent out of shape yesterday when Liz Warren sent them a letter asking about any conflicts of interest with Musk and this Doge thing and all his government contracts. It's a festival of conflicts of interest. There has never been an administration with as many conflicts of interest as the one that is associated with the incoming administration. And by the way, that was the case when he first took office in 2016. Now he's populated his administration with those who have mountains of conflicts of interest. So you're going to see a looting of the American treasury on a scale you have never seen before. And you're going to see a pay to play. The donors, the corporate interests, the big money that is going to flood this administration in a world that's already flooded by money. Washington is already flooded by lobby money. You're going to see it on a scale that far exceeds anything that you could ever conceive of. So, he should be ambassador to Transylvania, Herschel Walker, yeah. Almost 80,000 subscribers is right. Thank you, Nullifidian, yeah. Tell your friends, get us to 80. Herschel is ambassador. What could possibly go wrong, says Harry. Mark, do you have hot water yet? Thank you, Sherry, for finally asking a question that matters.
Big shout out.
Big shout out. I restored the hot water, but now we have another problem, which is like swamp gas or something, like a sewer smell that has completely invaded
swamp gas.
One of the bathrooms. It's just horrible.
And we don't know what it is or where it comes from.
It is brutal.
How many bathrooms do you have at the Mark Thompson estate?
Well, that's on a need-to-know basis. Why? Do you need to go?
No.
There is one for
Wondering if you can afford to close the door on that one and just,
We did. We have 3 bathrooms.
Oh,
and,
wow. Okay.
I feel as though we should have a 4th. But I don't know why I say that. I'd like a 4th of everything. On the, just looking, on the drones, all I want to think is the X-Files are real. Yeah. We all want to think that the X-Files are real. There you go. And my college newspaper paid us in pot. Said, I think didn't we read that? I thought we did, but that's pretty great.
Mine did too. I went to Humboldt State University. It's also known as Cal Poly Humboldt now. So there's very few things to do.
I love it, Albert.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Well, I love what we've done today. We covered a lot of stuff. Matt Gaetz, the drones, Herschel Walker, and more. Tom Cruise getting his induction into the Navy Hall of Fame.
The image is hideous.
Luigi and his charging first-degree murder. We talked about leaders in Congress and the passage of this new $100 billion in disaster aid and $10 billion for farmers, and it looks like a bill to keep the government open that is filled with a lot of gifts to lawmakers. That's oftentimes how you get stuff done. But we'll look forward tomorrow to more details from the Gates report from the House Ethics Committee. But now we turn to Kim and the after party and Shadow.
I'm Shadow Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
Yes, thank you all for all the love, all the support.
All time. Bye-bye.
Until tomorrow, my friends. Bye-bye.